Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. You probably didn't know that Steve Jobs of Apple Computer was reared a Lutheran, and so was Lou Gehrig, the baseball player. Last week and this week, as we draw near to Reformation Sunday, we have been looking at truly important and influential Lutherans from history, and today we want to look at one who has a dramatic story and who was one of the most important theologians of the last century. I'm talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Maybe you were impressed by how smart Albert Schweitzer seemed to be in yesterday's live stream, and Bonhoeffer was no slouch either, receiving his doctorate in theology at the age of 21 and graduating summa cum laude. Since he was still too young to be ordained, he embarked on a tour of America where he was disappointed to find that American theological studies lacked depth and the academic rigor he was used to. Bonhoeffer commented, "There is no theology here." However, during his time in the States, he became sensitive to the social injustices experienced by ethnic minorities in the United States, as well as the ineptitude of churches to bring about integration. Bonhoeffer began to see things from below, from the perspective of those who suffer oppression. Bonhoeffer began to write, and many of his books are still read today, particularly the book The Cost of Discipleship, in which he explains that grace is free, but it isn't cheap. In other words, grace is God's free gift to us, but it was very costly to God in the death of Jesus. Even though he was out of Germany in the lead up to World War II, he immediately returned to Germany saying, "If I do not share in the sufferings of my people, I have no right to join with them as they are restored." When he returned, he discovered that the German Lutheran Church, controlled and run by the government, was supportive of Hitler's policies, and so Bonhoeffer became a founding member of the Confessing Church, a group of like-minded people who were opposed to Hitler. 2 days after Hitler was installed as Chancellor, Bonhoeffer delivered a radio address in which he attacked Hitler and warned Germany against slipping into an idolatrous cult of the leader, who could very well turn out to be the misleader or seducer. His broadcast was abruptly cut off. In April of 1933, he raised the first voice calling for the church to resist Hitler, and in particular his policies toward the Jews. He founded and then ran an underground seminary, eventually forcing him to travel from town to town, teaching what he called Seminary on the Run. In 1938, the Gestapo banned him from Berlin. He took a job with military intelligence where his brother was already working, and there he learned about various attempts on Hitler's life. Long story short, eventually Bonhoeffer became convinced that the only way to stop the war and the horrible persecutions and to restore his country was to assassinate Hitler. And he became part of a plot to kill Hitler on July 20th, 1944, and the plot failed. Bonhoeffer was imprisoned, and his brother was shot. Just prior to this, Bonhoeffer had become engaged, and that proved invaluable because his fiancée was allowed to visit him and was able to smuggle correspondence in and out and take him extra food. While he was in prison, Bonhoeffer wrote one of his most meaningful books, Letters and Papers from Prison. He talks openly about his struggles and his faith. In the book, he includes a poem which has become meaningful to many. Who am I? They often tell me I stepped from my cell's confinement calmly, cheerfully, firmly, like a squire from his country house. Who am I? They often tell me I used to speak to my warders freely and friendly and clearly, as though it were mine to command. Who am I? They also tell me I bore the days of misfortune equably, smilingly, proudly, like one accustomed to win. Am I then really that which other men tell of? Or am I only what I myself know of myself, restless and longing and sick like a bird in a cage, struggling for breath as though hands were compressing my throat, yearning for colors, for flowers, for the voices of birds, thirsting for words of kindness, for neighborliness, tossing in expectations of great events, powerlessly trembling for friends at an infinite distance, weary and empty at praying, at thinking, at making, faint and ready to say farewell to it all. Who am I? This or the other? Am I one person today and tomorrow another? Am I both at once, a hypocrite before others and before myself a contemptible, woebegone weakling? Or is something within me still like a beaten army fleeing in disorder from victory already achieved? Who am I? They mock me, these lonely questions of mine. Whoever I am, thou knowest, O God, I am thine. As World War II was drawing to a close and Berlin was surrounded from his bunker, Hitler gave an order that Bonhoeffer should be dead before he was, and Bonhoeffer was led naked from his cell and was hanged on April 9th, 1945. He left a legacy of important theological writings and influenced people like Martin Luther King Jr. and more. Most importantly, he was a man and a pastor who lived out his faith and devotion to God. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.